The music died. One moment the ballroom of Penford House was alive with laughter and the swirl of silk, the golden glow of 1,000 candles catching on jeweled masks. The next, silence. A single voice cut through the air like a whip. "How dare you, Mia Harper?" Every head turned. Lady Eleanor Voss stood at the edge of the dance floor, her emerald mask glinting, her finger pointed straight at me. Her voice rang clear and venomous across the sudden quiet. "You smiled at him. You touched his arm. You knew he was promised to me, yet you still tried to steal my future right here, in front of everyone." The orchestra stopped mid-note. The dancers froze. Hundreds of eyes hidden behind feathers and gold and lace locked onto me as if I were a criminal caught in the act. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I could barely breathe. I hadn't stolen anyone. I had only accepted one polite dance, one smile, one harmless conversation. But in that glittering world of the ton, a smile was enough to ruin a woman forever. I felt the heat rush to my cheeks beneath my simple silver mask. My gloved hands trembled at my sides. I wanted to speak to defend myself, but my throat had closed tight. From the corner of my eye, I saw my mother, Claire Harper, sink slowly onto a velvet chair, one hand pressed to her chest, as if the air had been stolen from her lungs. My Uncle Grant. Harper stood like stone a few feet away, his face drained of all color, his mouth slightly open in disbelief. No one moved to help me. No one spoke in my defense. The silence stretched, heavy, suffocating, deadly. Then Eleanor's voice rose again, sharp and triumphant. "Take her out. She doesn't belong here." 2 footmen appeared at my elbows. Their grips were firm, almost bruising, as they began steering me toward the tall glass doors that led to the terrace. I stumbled once, my satin slippers sliding on the polished marble. Outside, the rain had turned violent. Cold droplets hammered the stone steps like angry fists. The footmen released me at the edge of the terrace and stepped back inside without a word, closing the doors behind them with a soft, final click. I stood alone. Rain soaked through my gown in seconds. My mask slipped from my face and fell to the wet stone with a dull clatter. I didn't pick it up. Lightning flashed across the London sky, illuminating the empty garden below. Thunder rolled like distant judgment. And in that moment, with water streaming down my face and my heart shattering inside my chest, one terrible truth burned itself into my soul. A single lie could destroy a woman faster than any blade. I had come to this ball hoping for a chance at a future. Instead, I had just watched my reputation die in 5 cruel minutes. The rain had finally stopped by morning, but the storm inside my chest only grew louder. I stood in the drawing room of our townhouse on Grosvenor Square, still wearing the damp gown from the night before. Sleep had never come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Eleanor's accusing finger and heard the silence that followed her words. My Uncle Grant Harper entered the room without knocking. His face was pale and set in hard lines I'd never seen before. He did not sit. He simply looked at me with something between exhaustion and fury. "Mia," he said quietly, his voice rough, "if you do not secure a respectable marriage before the season ends, the entire estate will be seized. Every last penny. The house in Hampshire. Everything your father left us. It will go to creditors." The words landed like stones in still water. I felt my throat close. The cold, invisible rope tightened around my neck, making it hard to breathe. Marriage to whom? The only offers I had ever received were polite and meaningless. And now my name was poison. Mother Claire Harper sat on the settee, her hands twisting a lace handkerchief until the fabric nearly tore. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her eyes, red from crying through the night. I cannot force you. Uncle Grant continued, his voice dropping even lower. But if you refuse the only suitable match left, we will lose everything. He paused. The silence pressed against my ribs. Lord Victor Langford has made his interest known. He is willing to overlook last night's scandal. The wedding must happen within 6 weeks. Lord Victor Langford. The name alone sent ice sliding down my spine. He was nearly 60, wealthy beyond measure, but his eyes were cold and possessive. I had met him once at a garden party. The way he had stared at me as if I were already something he owned still made my skin crawl. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My mind raced through every possible escape and found none. Just then, the heavy brass knocker sounded at the front door. I have a proposal. The air in the room seemed to thicken. I will announce our engagement publicly for 6 weeks. It will shield your reputation and satisfy the immediate pressure on your family's estate. In return, you will help me protect a secret that could destroy my own name if it ever surfaced. My heart hammered so loudly, I was certain everyone could hear it. A fake engagement. To the Duke of Ashford, it was madness. It was salvation. I searched his face for any sign of deception, but found only calm certainty. And something deeper, something shadowed behind those gray eyes that made my stomach tighten with both fear and an unwelcome spark of curiosity. Uncle Grant cleared his throat. Your Grace, this is highly irregular. I am aware Caleb cut in smoothly, never breaking eye contact with me. 6 weeks? No more, no less. At the end, we may part ways quietly, or not. That will be Miss Harper's choice. My mother whispered my name soft and trembling. I looked at her weary face. I thought of the house in Hampshire where I had run through the gardens as a child. I thought of Lord Victor Langford's cold, hungry stare. Then I looked back at the Duke. His eyes held mine patient, waiting. In that moment, I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff and the wind howling around me. One step forward and I might fall into something dangerous and unknown. One step back and everything I loved would crumble. I drew in a shaky breath. I accept, I whispered. The words left my lips before I could pull them back. Caleb Ashford gave the faintest nod, as if he had expected nothing less. But for the briefest second, something flickered across his face, relief, or was it warning? He took one slow step closer. Then we begin tomorrow, Miss Harper. The world will believe we are betrothed. But remember this. His voice dropped until only I could hear it. Some bargains with the devil come at a price far greater than money. He bowed slightly to my mother and uncle, then turned and left the room as quietly as he had entered. The door clicked shut behind him. I stood frozen, my hands cold, my heart racing with a mixture of terror and something dangerously close to hope. I had just made a deal with one of the most powerful and most mysterious men in England. And deep down in a place I refused to examine too closely, I knew the truth. The real danger wasn't the fake engagement. It was the way my pulse had quickened when those cold gray eyes looked straight into mine. As if they already saw every secret I had ever tried to hide. The first week of our fake engagement felt like walking across thin ice in silk slippers. Every afternoon we rode together in Hyde Park at the fashionable hour. Caleb's black stallion moved beside my mare with calm power, while curious eyes followed us from every carriage and footpath. We smiled when we were supposed to smile. We spoke softly when people drew near, but the moment we were alone on the quieter paths, the performance slipped. He was not cold the way society whispered. One gray afternoon, as light rain misted the trees, Caleb slowed his horse and looked at me with those storm-colored eyes. "You're trembling," he said quietly. I hadn't realized I was. "It's only the chill," I lied. He removed his riding glove, reached across, and briefly pressed warm fingers against the back of my hand. The touch lasted less than 3 seconds, yet it sent heat rushing through my veins. "You don't have to pretend with me when no one is watching, Mia." The sound of my given name on his lips felt dangerously intimate. I pulled my hand away, but the warmth remained. Later that evening, we danced a waltz at Lady Caldwell's ball. The music was slow and aching. His hand rested lightly at my waist, guiding me with effortless control. For the first time, I noticed how carefully he held me, as though I were something precious he was afraid to break. "You're not what they say you are," I whispered during a turn. He looked down at me, a faint shadow crossing his face. "Neither are you." That single sentence lingered between us long after the music ended. The next morning, a letter arrived, sealed with plain wax and delivered by a quiet maid. The handwriting was Lydia Beaumont's, my dearest childhood friend, now confined to her sickbed in the countryside. I read it alone in my room, sunlight falling across the page in pale gold stripes. "My dearest Mia, I heard what happened at the masquerade. My heart aches for you. Remember this, my friend, reputation is only a gown the world forces you to wear. It can be torn, stained, or taken away. But your soul is not for sale. Not to any man, not even to a duke. Whatever bargain you have made, do not trade away the part of you that still believes in goodness. I am weaker each day, but I will pray for your courage every night I have left. With all my love." Lydia, tears blurred the ink before I could finish. I folded the letter carefully and pressed it to my chest. Lydia was dying, yet she still worried about my soul more than her own life. Her words settled deep inside me like a warning and a lifeline. 2 days later, Julian Blackwood found me in the garden behind our townhouse. Caleb's closest friend was tall and serious, with kind eyes that rarely smiled. He removed his hat and spoke without preamble. "Miss Harper, I must be blunt. Caleb's secret is darker than you know. If it ever comes to light, it will not only ruin him, it will drag you down with him. The scandal at the masquerade will seem like nothing." I felt a chill race down my arms. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Because I see the way he looks at you when he thinks no one notices." Julian hesitated, then added softly, "And I see the way you look at him." This arrangement was meant to be business, but hearts rarely obey contracts. He bowed and left me standing among the roses, my pulse racing with fresh fear. That same evening, the new whispers began. At the theater, I overheard 2 ladies behind their fans. They say the Duke only chose her to silence the rumors about his own family. They say she trapped him. They say she is no better than a fortune hunter. Lady Eleanor Voss moved through the crowd like a queen in exile, offering small, knowing smiles whenever our eyes met. She never spoke directly to me again, but her silence was louder than any accusation. Each night I lay awake staring at the canopy above my bed. I told myself this was only a performance. 6 weeks, nothing more. Yet every time Caleb looked at me across a crowded room, something inside my chest tightened and softened at the same time. Every quiet conversation on horseback, every brief touch of his hand, every rare half-smile he allowed himself. They were pulling me deeper. I was falling, slowly, dangerously, into the arms of the very man whose secret could destroy us both. And the most terrifying part, I no longer wanted to stop falling. The hunt gathered at dawn on the rolling hills outside London. Mist clung to the grass like whispered secrets, and the air carried the sharp scent of wet earth and horses. Red coats moved through the crowd like drops of blood against the gray morning. I rode beside Caleb, my gloved hands tight on the reins, trying to ignore the weight of curious stares that had followed us since the moment we arrived. For a few brief hours, it almost felt possible to believe the lie we had built. Then the horns sounded, and the hounds were released. We had barely crested the second hill when Lady Eleanor Voss reined her horse to a dramatic stop in the middle of the clearing. Her voice rang out clear and merciless, cutting through the morning air like a blade. "Listen to me, all of you." The riders slowed. Conversations died. Even the hounds seemed to pause. Eleanor's eyes burned with triumph as she pointed directly at Caleb. "The Duke of Ashford has deceived every one of you for years. His father did not die in a tragic accident. He murdered a man to hide his financial crimes. And our dear Duke has spent a fortune silencing every witness who knew the truth." Gasps rippled through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. I felt the blood drain from my face. My heart slammed against my ribs so violently I could barely draw breath. The secret, the one Caleb had asked me to help him protect. It was spilling out now raw and ugly in front of the entire hunting party. Whispers exploded around us. Murderer. Blood money. How could he? Caleb sat motionless on his stallion. His jaw was clenched, but he did not speak. He did not defend himself. He did not even look at Eleanor. He only turned his head and looked straight at me. Those storm-gray eyes held mine with a pain so deep and naked that it stole the air from my lungs. There was no anger in them, only quiet, devastating resignation, as if he had always known this moment would come and had simply been waiting for it to destroy him. In that single look, I saw everything he had never said. The weight he carried alone. The nights he must have lain awake wondering if his father's sin would eventually claim his own life. And the terrifying realization that by standing beside me in this fake engagement, he had now dragged me into the same darkness. My hands began to shake on the reins. The horse shifted nervously beneath me. I wanted to scream that it wasn't fair, that none of this was my fault, or his, that we had only been trying to survive. But the words died in my throat. Eleanor's voice rose again, sharp with satisfaction. "Ask him if it's true. Ask the Duke why he pays so handsomely for silence." The silence that followed was suffocating. Every eye turned to Caleb. He still said nothing. Instead, he guided his horse a single step closer to mine. Close enough that our knees nearly brushed. Close enough that I could see the faint tremor in his hand as he gripped the reins. In that moment, the fake engagement no longer felt like a bargain. It felt like chains. Real ones. Heavy, cold, unbreakable. I could walk away right now. I could denounce him. I could save what was left of my own reputation and let the ton tear him apart. Lord Victor Langford was still waiting in London with his cold offers and his promises of security. Or I could stay. Stay with the man whose eyes were begging me without a single word not to abandon him. My chest ached with the force of the choice. Fear clawed at me sharp and relentless. Fear of ruin. Fear of losing everything my family had left. Fear of falling completely hopelessly in love with a man whose past might destroy us both. Yet beneath the fear, something warmer and far more dangerous stirred. A quiet, stubborn loyalty. A tenderness I had no right to feel. Caleb's gaze never wavered from mine. In the heavy silence of that misty field with the whole world watching and waiting for my reaction, I realized the truth. With terrifying clarity, I was no longer pretending. My heart had already chosen him. And now, I had to decide whether I was brave enough to live with that choice. The night before my uncle was to sign the papers that would strip our family of everything, I stood alone in the old library. Only a few candles flickered on the heavy oak table, casting long trembling shadows across the walls lined with books no one had opened in years. The scent of aged leather and dust wrapped around me like a fading memory of safer times. My hands were cold. My heart felt too large for my chest. I had refused Lord Victor Langford's formal proposal that afternoon. His face had twisted with disbelief, and then cold fury when I told him I would rather lose everything than belong to him. The memory of his parting words still echoed bitterly in my ears. "You will regret this, Miss Harper." Perhaps I would. But I could not marry a man whose touch made my skin crawl when my heart had already given itself to someone else. A soft knock sounded at the door. Davis entered quietly, carrying a sealed letter. "It arrived an hour ago, miss, from the countryside. Lydia's final letter." My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Her handwriting was weaker now, the lines uneven, but the words burned with quiet fire. "Mia, my dearest friend, if you are reading this, I have already gone. Do not be afraid. Dignity can be stolen by lies, but your soul remains yours alone. Choose the man who sees you, not the one who owns you. Choose love that asks for your courage, not your silence. I believe in you. Always. Forever, yours, Lydia." A single tear slipped down my cheek and fell onto the paper, blurring her name. I folded the letter gently and pressed it against my heart. Even in death, Lydia had given me strength. I lifted my chin, wiped my eyes, and walked out of the library. The grand salon at Penford House was filled with the same faces that had watched my ruin weeks earlier. Tonight, they had come for the final act to witness my uncle sign away our future. Lady Eleanor Voss stood near the fireplace, radiant in dark silk, a triumphant smile playing at her lips. I walked straight to the center of the room. The murmurs died. "I have something to say." My voice carried clearer than I expected. Every head turned. Eleanor's smile faltered. "I know the truth," I continued, meeting her eyes without blinking. "You were the one who spread the lies about my behavior at the masquerade, and you were the one who paid to have old documents altered so the accusations against the Duke would seem undeniable. You wanted him ruined, because he refused you years ago." Gasps filled the room. Eleanor's face drained of color. "That is a vicious lie." "No," I said softly but firmly. "Julian Blackwood has the original letters and witness statements you tried to bury. They are safe." Julian stepped forward from the shadows near the doorway and gave a single solemn nod. The room erupted in whispers. I turned to face the gathered nobility, my hands steady at my sides, even though my knees felt weak. I stand here tonight, not because of any contract or bargain. I stand here because I choose Caleb Ashford. Not for protection, not for wealth, but because I love him, because I trust him, and because real honor is not decided by the gossip of the ton. It is chosen in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Silence fell thick and electric. Then Caleb moved. He crossed the room with slow, deliberate steps until he stood directly before me. The pain I had seen in his eyes during the hunt was still there, but something else burned beneath it now, something fierce and unguarded. He dropped to one knee, right there, in front of everyone. The Duke of Ashford, and the man who had sworn never to speak of his family's shame, looked up at me with eyes that held years of silence and a lifetime of longing. Mia Harper, he said, his voice low and rough with emotion. I've carried my father's secret like chains for too long. Tonight I break them. I will never ask you to hide again. I vow to protect you, your family, and the life we choose to build. With every breath I have left, if you will have me. Truly. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. I reached out and touched his face, my fingers trembling against the hard line of his jaw. Yes, I whispered. I will have you. Truly. The room remained silent for one breathless moment. Then applause began, hesitant at first, then growing until it filled the grand salon like thunder. 3 weeks later, we married in a small country church near the Hampshire estate my family had nearly lost. No grand ballroom, no sea of jeweled masks. Just simple wildflowers, soft morning light through stained glass, and the quiet presence of those who truly mattered. My mother, Claire, Uncle Grant, Julie and Blackwood, and a single empty chair, reserved in memory of Lydia Beaumont. Caleb slipped a plain gold band onto my finger, his hand warm and sure. As we stood together before the altar, he leaned close and whispered against my hair, "You saved me from my silence, and I will spend every day proving I am worthy of your courage." I looked into those storm-gray eyes that had once terrified and fascinated me, and felt the last pieces of fear dissolve into something warm and enduring. Love. Real love. Not the kind born from contracts or convenience, but the kind forged in fire, in whispered truths, and in the quiet vow to stand together when the world demanded otherwise. Value this story brings you. This story reminds us that true honor is not found in the loud judgment of society, but in the silent courage to love deeply, to forgive the past, and to choose each other, even when every voice around us says we should not. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for giving your time to this story. Some journeys shape us, and we hope this one left a mark on your heart. There are more paths ahead, more legends of love, hardship, and redemption beneath the western sky. Please subscribe, leave your thoughts, and travel with us once again. Thank you, and God bless. Aviso legal. Disclaimer. The stories presented here are creative expressions and may mix historical inspiration with dramatized scenes. AI tools contribute to some elements of voice imagery and structure, but every published story is refined by editors and creators to ensure authentic emotional impact. We honor YouTube's policies and do not generate deceptive likenesses or artificial depictions of real people. All audiovisual components are legally licensed. Any use, redistribution, or alteration of this content must be granted through written consent. Your presence here means a lot. Thank you for supporting artistic storytelling.